You know that feeling when you are like lying in bed at 3 in the morning, absolutely exhausted, but your brain is just running a full marathon?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. You're either mentally prepping for a meeting that is still 3 days away,
Uh,
or obsessing over a 5-year plan that just keeps changing, or, and this is my favorite, replaying some mildly awkward thing you said at a party half a decade ago.
yeah, we've all been there.
It feels like everybody today is constantly running on this mental treadmill.
We really are. And we treat that constant internal chatter as a baseline for normal. In a lot of ways, society actually applauds it. They call it being driven or highly analytical.
Totally.
But if you step back and look at it objectively, that inability to turn off the noise is, well, it's completely draining.
It really is. And, what if all of that mental running isn't just a byproduct of a busy life, but actually a symptom of a broader mental disease? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today our mission is to unpack a really fascinating discussion based on Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Yes, it's such an impactful book.
We're going to figure out why living in the present moment actually terrifies us, redefine this notoriously vague concept of awareness, and explore how you can stop being held hostage by your own mind.
It is a complete dismantling of our traditional understanding of time, of identity, and even how we view romantic love.
Oh yeah, the love part gets intense.
It really does. For anyone who feels like they are constantly trapped in their own head, the ideas here represent a radical, almost disorienting shift in perspective.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why the present moment feels so daunting to us, we first have to look at the filter we use to view the entire world. And the core argument here is that this filter is our ego.
Right, the ego.
Now, usually when I hear the word ego, I just picture arrogance. Someone dominating the conversation at a dinner party and bragging about their golf swing.
Yeah, we almost always equate it with vanity or narcissism. But the perspective we are exploring redefines the ego entirely. It argues that the mind itself, the constant stream of thinking, that is the ego.
Wait, just the act of thinking?
Exactly. It is this unfathomable entity made up of all the external meanings we attach to ourselves. Think about your opinions, your judgments, your political ideologies, your favorite art genres, even your career title.
Oh, wow. So, everything.
Yeah, everything. The ego is the sum total of the things you use to construct an identity for the world to see.
And the reason we are so addicted to gathering all these labels is because they act as a shield. There is this concept of inner nudity.
Oh, that's a great term. Inner nudity.
Right. It's the idea that underneath all those opinions, we are terrified of our authentic, unlabeled selves. So we throw all these tastes and ideologies on top to make ourselves presentable. It's almost like we build a giant suit of armor out of our favorite bands, our job titles, and our political stances.
That armor analogy is perfect. It actually explains the mechanics of our emotional reactions.
Because when someone insults your favorite band, it feels like you are being physically stabbed. But it's really just your armor taking a dent.
Exactly. Emotions are frequently just a physical spillover of our thoughts. When someone challenges your opinion with a perfectly valid counterargument, your brain doesn't just say, oh, what an interesting alternate viewpoint.
It definitely does not say that.
No, your brain deploys the exact same adrenaline response it would use if you were standing on the edge of a cliff. Your body literally cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and an insult to your movie taste.
It's wild. You see a comment online disagreeing with you, and suddenly your palms are sweating and your heart rate spikes. It is insane when you realize your body is reacting to a text box on a screen.
Right, because it is an attack on the ego.
Yeah.
And the ego panics easily because its credibility is frankly baseless. It relies entirely on outside markers. A great modern example of this mechanism is excessive social media use.
Oh, absolutely.
The platforms force people to adopt popular aesthetics and activities strictly for future validation. You curate an image for people to look at later, rather than observing who you actually are right now.
And confronting that inner nudity without the shield of external likes and comments feels like an existential crisis. So we just keep scrolling and posting.
Yeah, we just feed the machine.
And because that ego relies so heavily on past memories to build its identity, saying, I am the person who survived this trauma, or I am the person who went to this prestigious school, and it relies on future hopes for its salvation, like I will finally be happy when I get this promotion. Because of all that, it completely rejects the present moment.
The present is totally useless to the ego.
Oh.
Which brings us to a wildly provocative definition of time.
Yes, let's get into this.
The argument is that the past and the future simply do not exist. They are mental illusions. Dwelling on them isn't just a bad habit, it is categorized as an actual symptom of unwellness.
Wait a second. I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening who is prepping for a massive work presentation tomorrow.
Right, the practical planners out there.
Yeah, because calling that unwellness seems a bit extreme. How do we function in modern society without planning for the future? I mean, we can't all just wander around staring at trees.
That is totally fair. There is a crucial distinction to make here between clock time and psychological time.
Okay, clock time.
Clock time is highly practical. It is looking at your watch, booking a flight, or physically sitting at your computer preparing the slides for your presentation. You are taking practical action in the present moment to facilitate a future event.
Okay, so doing the actual work is fine.
Yes. Psychological time, however, is the mental unease. It is sitting at your desk, not making the slides, but agonizing over the embarrassment you might feel tomorrow if you mess up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Or it's lying in bed, letting your stomach tie itself in knots over a meeting you had 3 years ago. If we connect this to the bigger picture, true presence is a state of active problem solving without the baggage of anxiety.
It is the anxiety about the thing, not the doing of the thing. But it feels like we actively seek out that anxiety. We have this bizarre attachment to our problems.
We really do.
It's like we internally crave them because they give us a storyline. Every problem you think you have actually originates in the past, but obsessing over it creates the illusion that it is happening right now, weighing you down in the present.
People often want to have problems because without them, they lose their narrative. Like, I am the guy dealing with a terrible boss. If you suddenly remove the terrible boss, well, who are you? You just have to sit quietly with yourself.
Which is terrifying for most people.
Exactly. And time and mind are completely interchangeable. The mind cannot exist without the concept of time. Consider what happens in a true physical emergency. Say a car swerves into your lane on the highway.
You don't sit there and think about your 5-year plan.
No, you don't. Your mind doesn't think about the past or the future at all. It simply acts. You swerve the wheel. There is no psychological time in a true emergency, only pure, unfiltered presence.
But most of our lives aren't emergencies. We're just sitting in that quiet. And because we hate that quiet, we look for escape hatches. We try to mute the ego's noise through like alcohol, drugs, overworking, or just mindlessly binge-watching television.
Yeah.
But those things just result in a mental blackout. Knocking the mind unconscious is definitely not the same thing as conscious presence.
No, it is just avoidance. You are temporarily putting the ego to sleep, only for it to wake up the next morning with a hangover and a renewed sense of anxiety. You haven't resolved the internal unease, you've literally just paused the timer.
And this constant need to escape ourselves doesn't just isolate us internally. It completely sabotages how we interact with others. We start looking for a partner to be our escape hatch.
Oh, this is a huge trap.
Right. We think, if I just find the right person, they will fix this unease inside of me. They will validate my ego enough that I won't feel anxious anymore.
We load romantic love with the impossible task of making us complete. We use partners to save us from our own minds. But there is a striking metaphor for this in the text. You can't fix two broken vases with each other's shards. One person's internal turmoil cannot possibly be another person's cure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You can't fix two broken vases with each other's shards. I love that imagery. It perfectly explains why we so often base our self-worth on things designed to attract a partner, like our appearance, our career trajectory. We curate all this stuff to be lovable, but then we feel incredibly insecure about those exact things. We worry we'll lose our looks or our job, which just creates this vicious cycle where we demand constant reassurance from our partner to prop up our ego.
And an unaware person who relies on a partner for wholeness is highly prone to negativity. Jealousy, possessiveness, control, irritation, these are direct results of ego-driven love.
Not even love, really.
It isn't. It is extraction. It is pure need. True, unconditional love emanates from within. Think of it like this. Love is not selective, just as the light of the sun is not selective. It simply radiates.
If the sun just shines on everything, true love is a state of being you occupy, not a resource you mine from one specific person. There's also a really interesting point made about feminine energy in this context. And this energy isn't limited exclusively to women, right? It's a universal force.
Correct. Feminine energy assumes openness, non-judgment, and yielding. And yielding here doesn't mean weakness or submission to abuse. It is a gentle yet potent force necessary for cultivating awareness. It is the ability to open up to the present moment rather than rigidly fighting against it.
Okay, so practically speaking, if we are in a relationship and we want to stop acting like two broken vases scraping against each other, how do we apply this? I know the concept of witness mode comes up.
Yes, witness mode is key.
But I have to admit, if my partner leaves a mess in the kitchen for the fourth day in a row, my instinct is absolutely not to calmly witness my feelings. I mean, I want to start a fight.
And that desire to fight is the ego feeling disrespected. Witness mode requires that when that familiar spike of irritation hits, instead of reacting and fueling a verbal argument, you just watch the emotion.
Just watch it.
Yeah. You internally label it. There's anger in me right now. You let it run its course through your body without contributing a storyline to it. You use that moment of intense friction to improve your own self-awareness, recognizing that the anger is an internal reaction, not an objective truth about the world.
Using the relationship as a mirror to fix your own face rather than demanding they glue you back together. It sounds agonizingly difficult in the heat of the moment.
It takes practice.
Which brings up a bigger issue. If we can't rely on relationships or success to fix us, how do we actually break out of this ego trap? Paradoxically, it requires the one thing we spend our entire lives trying to run away from, which is failure and pain.
We are deeply conditioned to view failure as the opposite of success. But success cannot exist without failure. Withering is a natural essential stage of progress. It is the discomfort that motivates us to strengthen, not the victory lap.
Think about sore muscles after a good workout. You push yourself, you wake up the next day, and your arms are on fire. You don't panic and think, oh, a terrible tragedy has occurred. My body is ruined.
Right, but can you expect it?
Exactly. You know the pain is actual physical evidence of growth. It means the muscle fibers are rebuilding stronger. But when it comes to emotional pain, like a breakup or a career failure, we treat it like an absolute catastrophe.
Because that negativity is just the mind hating being attacked. The ego's armor is being cracked. Major spiritual and personal awakenings usually happen due to the restoring force of abnormal pain or limitation. When you lose the job or the relationship ends, you are forced out of your comfortable narrative.
Yeah.
It is terrifying, but that crack in the armor is the only way the light gets in.
The trick is handling that pain without just wallowing in it indefinitely. There is a vital distinction between forgiveness and surrender. Forgiveness is accepting the past, stopping that mental loop of, this shouldn't have happened to me. And surrender is accepting the present. But surrender is such a loaded word. It sounds like waving a white flag and just letting people walk all over you.
Surrender does not mean passivity. It means acknowledging unfavorable circumstances without anger or frustration and resolving them without taking it personally.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say your car breaks down on the highway. Surrendering means saying, okay, the car is broken down, and then calmly calling a tow truck. Not surrendering is standing on the side of the road, kicking the tires, screaming, why does this always happen to me? I am cursed.
Which is what most of us do.
Right. But the tow truck still needs to be called in both scenarios. The second scenario just involves immense, unnecessary psychological suffering.
That makes me think of this incredible psychological trap we fall into. The depressed identity. A lot of people fail to release their pessimism because their ego actually feeds off it.
This raises an important question about how deeply we secretly enjoy our own victim status. Adopting a positive outlook or surrendering to the moment actually threatens their sense of self.
Wow.
If you have spent 10 years building an identity around being the victim of circumstance or the person who is misunderstood by the world, letting go of that negativity means losing who you think you are. People cling to their victim status because it justifies passivity. It is much easier to read from the script that says the world is against me than to drop the script and take constructive action right now.
Realizing you might be fiercely protecting your own misery because it's familiar is a really tough pill to swallow. So what does this all mean? Moving from theory into reality, how do we actually do this? How does someone listening right now practice stepping out of the ego and into the authority? Now today, without having to wait for a major life crisis to crack their armor.
The ultimate goal is to enter a state of no mind.
No mind.
Yes. This is total presence. If you've ever been in a deep creative flow state playing an instrument, writing, or even playing a sport, where you completely lose track of time and you aren't worrying about yesterday or planning for tomorrow, that is no mind. You are just completely immersed in the action. And there are several highly practical techniques to train your brain to access this state on demand.
I want to spend some time on these because the first one completely blew my mind. The exercise is to close your eyes, take a breath, and ask yourself internally, what will my next thought be? And then you just wait and watch.
It is brilliant, isn't
I
it?
tried this, and it is uncanny. The second you actively watch for a thought, your mind goes dead silent. It's like a mouse hole. If a cat is sitting there intensely staring at the hole, the mouse will not dare come out. You essentially trick your brain into silence just by observing it.
It works because it forces your awareness to step outside of the thinking mind. You become the observer rather than the thinker. And in that gap between thoughts, you experience pure presence. Another highly effective technique is inverting your attention into your body.
How does that work?
While you are sitting there, close your eyes and focus entirely on your hands. Try to feel the energy or the subtle pulse flowing inside them. Then move to your feet or your chest. It draws your consciousness away from the mental chatter in your head and anchors it in a physical sensation that is happening right this second.
There's another one that sounds incredibly simple but is actually infuriatingly hard when you first try it, and that is studying a mundane item. You take a pen or a coffee mug or a houseplant and you just look at it. But the rule is you can't mentally comment on it.
Yes, that is a tough one.
I tried this with my coffee mug. I stared at it, and immediately my brain started screaming, it has a chip on the rim. I bought this at Target 3 years ago. It's a nice shade of blue. The urge to categorize and judge the object is so overpowering.
Because the ego needs to label things to feel in control. When you look at a flower and mentally say, that is a red rose, you have stopped experiencing the flower and started experiencing your concept of the flower. To practice non-thinking, you have to gaze at the object and suppress that itch to judge. Just observe its shape, its texture, the way the light hits it, in pure internal silence.
It makes you realize how noisy your baseline state is. You could also observe animals to see this in action. A dog laying in a sunbeam on the living room rug isn't burdened by time perception.
Not at all.
It isn't stressing about its career path or holding a grudge about the brand of dog food you bought yesterday. It is just experiencing the warmth of the sun in that exact millisecond. Watching an animal exist like that can actually be a grounding form of meditation.
And if you are in a chaotic environment, like a busy office or a crowded train, you can practice by listening to the silence amidst the noise.
Wait, silence in a busy office.
Yes. Instead of focusing on the conversations or the traffic, try to focus your attention on the spaces between the sounds, the underlying silence that allows the sounds to exist. It immediately detaches you from the drama of the outer world.
Doing this consistently out in the real world feels like swimming against a massive current, though. We live in a society that practically demands we stay in our egos. We are obsessed with celebrity drama, we are constantly bombarded by news designed to trigger our anxieties, and we feel pressure to blend in with the collective outrage of our peer groups.
It is exhausting.
It is. The gravity of the culture is always trying to pull us back into the noise.
That is exactly why presence cannot be passive. It must be an active daily practice. Egos are naturally drawn to bigger egos. If you just go with the flow of modern society, you will inevitably be pulled back into psychological time because our entire economic and social structure is built on manipulating your past regrets and future anxieties.
How true.
You have to consciously choose to bring your awareness to the forefront. You have to choose to be the observer of your life over and over again.
It really is a lifelong journey of catching yourself, slipping into the noise, and pulling yourself back out. To tie all of this together, the mind is an incredibly brilliant tool for solving practical problems. But it is not who you are. The past and the future are ultimately mental constructs that cause us a massive amount of unnecessary suffering.
Exactly.
True peace, the kind of baseline contentment that isn't dependent on your job title, your bank account, or your romantic relationship, only comes from shedding that heavy armor of the ego. It comes from accepting the present moment exactly as it is, forgiving the past, and surrendering to reality without taking it personally.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with the final idea to mull over, drawing on everything we've explored today about the illusion of time. If practically all of your psychological problems require time to exist because they are either regrets about what happened yesterday or anxieties about what might happen tomorrow, who are you right now in this exact millisecond if you strip all of that time away?
Wow.
That is a deeply profound question to carry with you this week. We might never fully stop our brains from trying to jump back on that mental treadmill, but maybe now we can at least recognize the machinery. We have the power to step off, take a breath, and just watch the thoughts pass by. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.